We are live on Facebook via Zoom. I'm Akua Leslie Hope, speaking to you from the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the Western Door in the Southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. I pay homage to the Seneca, past, present, and future, as I do to my own ancestors by whose grace I exist and am sustained. This event is funded in part by poets and writers with public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts. Speculative poetry, the poetry of possibilities, includes alternate history, astro poetry, cryptids, monsters, cyberpunk, dystopia, fairy tales, fabulism, fantasy, folklore, futurism, horror, magic, mythology, occult, paranormal, robots, science fiction, shifters, slipstream, solar punk, space opera, superhero, supernatural, sword and sorcery, sword and soul, steampunk, time travel, post-apocalyptic, and weird. It takes all poetic forms, plus sci-fi coup. This evening's reader is Soonest Nathaniel. Soonest Nathaniel is a multi-award-winning poet, digital broadcast journalist, and spoken word artist from Nigeria. His poetry collection, Teaching Father How to Impregnate Women, was selected as winner of the RL Poetry Award. A Riesling and Pushcart nominee, Soonest was named a 2021 Langston Hughes Fellow at the Palm Beach Festival and Poet Laureate for the Korea, Nigeria Poetry Festival. Master of a hybrid genre he loosely refers to as African speculative realism, Soonest's poems navigate the interstice between reality and speculation. At the crossroads where these two realms meet, he explores experiences of personal realities, creating a poetry informed by these conjunctions and confluences. His poems are included in many places, including Rattle, Off the Coast magazine, Silver Blade, the Pedestal magazine, Fire, Illinois Review, Rockford Review, Evocations Review, the Elevation Review, Tulsa Review, Lit Light One, Idle Ink, Ice Flow, Press, Northridge Review, and many more. Before diving fully into poetry, Soonest was awarded a graduate degree in mathematics and computer science. That explains that poem about programming from the Federal University of Technology in Owerri. Soonest lives and works in Lagos, Nigeria. His latest collection, titled Nakedness of God, is due out in the spring of 2022. When he's not scribbling in his blue house, Soonest spends time listening to the music of the spheres, reading the stars, or wooing the moon. Welcome, Soonest.
Thank you very much. I don't think I've had anybody read or like a bio of mine that beautifully. It's so beautiful the way you read it. Very beautiful. Thank you very much. I liked it.
You may proceed.
Okay. I would read my first piece here. It's titled Oedipus Revisited. Oedipus Revisited, Oedipus Revisited. It's something I cooked up from Greek mythology and then built something out of it. Uh, I'm thinking a couple of good other persons have joined us, and that's beautiful. So a welcome, big welcome to everybody who's joined us here, and you joined at the right time. So let's kick it off with Oedipus Revisited. Arichas, it goes. I swallowed the yellow and purple pills, and again the child returns, but this time not to wail by the window. The child rises from his watery creeps, pulls his father by the bed onto the concrete floor, and drags his papa by the hair through the blue door. He throws his father along the dark corridor, asking for a name, asking for his mother, longing for breast milk, yearning for water, seeking blood to fill his empty veins. But his father has no answer. His father holds no reply. This is no place to weave another lie. Fear writes the truths in the white of his vacant eyes. The child wants a body, not a poor mix of blood and mud. The boy wants a mummy, something more sacred than a god. But how will this child be made to understand that a woman learns how to sit comfortably inside a burning bush? So they accused her of defiling God, shaved her hair with broken bottles, and banished her to a wilderness of dogmas. Oh, what becomes of this child who has no ears? When his mother cries in the grave cold night, when she craves for a mouth to suckle her breast, whose tongue will console her? So that's Oedipus Revisited. Do I get to continue?
Oh, yes, please. You get to read continuously until the half hour.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, that's great. All right, next poem is titled Vanishing Point. The night before he walked into the sea, coffee spilled in my father's shirt, and he begged me to help him take up the regalier of his troubled mind. Father confessed he had failed to embrace stubborn dreams of perpetual energy, feared he would leave the world without delivering power to the torch of teeming millions. The old soldier listened keenly while the Atlantic replayed the philosophy of salt. From our balcony, he could see the waves, eyes fixed like an old poet, waiting for his young lover, softening upon the tides, but she has strayed too far into the ocean. There is no returning from that place where the sea kisses the sky. At dawn, the news filtered in through the windows. The conservative said father did not die the way honest men should, so he wouldn't be buried in his father's compound. They left his body in the forbidden forest and hung his head on poles used to mark boundaries. A few market days after, I watched the bone people and midnight children gather to share the inheritance of loss, gather to savor the remains of the day. I watched them harvest honey from the hall of father's skull, where a swarm of bees had settled and made a comb. I tried to bark like the same men should, but it was no use, for the hunger in the eyes of the disappointed knows nothing of honor nor shame. Thank you. And our next poem here, thank you very much. And our next poem here is titled, What is in Your Fridge? What is in your fridge? Okay. In a bid to stop mothers from eating their toddlers, a task force was created, assigned to check every house of limbs of dismembered children and the women who will perfect spring from an inadequate understanding of art. Every fortnight they would come knocking. They would come asking their rather Finkler question, what is in your fridge? The first time they arrived at our door, our fridge was filled with fake news, wrong data, fear, despair, sad memories, putrid dreams, and chapbooks of elusive poems with no warnings to approach from a distance. There were threats all over the fridge door. There were curses my father could be sued for. The last time they knocked on our door, 3 bottles filled with muffled cries of concubines were sitting at the right side of the fridge broken bottle. 3 bottles filled with muffled cries of concubines were sitting at the right side of the fridge bottom shelf. In the vegetable crisper were fresh sins God refused to forgive. At the middle shelf, leftovers of estrogen and broken promises. Top shelf is for mother, for sympathies, for spilt milk and scum. Stocks of dislocated future start at the top left side of the freezer. At the right, a small box in which some bones were discovered. Mother swore it wasn't that of her child, said it was that of a baby chimp, whose carcass will be used to concoct potions for healing infirmities. My father tried to back her up with a weak smile, but more often than not, fiction bears a truth that history cannot comprehend. Thank you very much. Okay, I love to do this one. I love to do this one by heart, and I hope I remember. I always love to do this one by heart. It's titled "It Doesn't Take a Pennies." It's one from my book, Teaching Father How to Impregnate Women. So I like reading it by heart. It's one of those poems I really love when I started off writing properly. It says, I was born by a woman who sits like a man. Her legs wide open without fear for what the prying world would see, and she would say, let them bear witness that this lady is endowed with an elephant-sized testicle. My mother wears yucca fibers for sandals and rabbit furs for clothes. Her neck adorned with stones, bones, and dried berries, and she will often say, dead memory to an ornament. On certain days, she will sit me on her thighs, and with affection in her eyes, she will say to me, son, big ships drown in pools, ponds, and puddles. Boy, it doesn't take a penis to impregnate a woman. So at the school of her lap, I learned to castrate my fears in faith to fertilize the womb of bearing dreams. And last night I heard her say, the open road does not lead to death. It leads to a lake full of laughter. That was It Doesn't Take a Penis. Okay. All right. So since I have luxury of a little time, I will be reading from the book, Teaching Father to Impregnate Women. All right. This is called The Garden of Earthly Delights. The Garden of Earthly Delights. Paint a portrait of innocence for Dante and Virgil in hell. Tell of the death of Marat. Head severed. I watched Saturn devouring his son, and Judith decapitating Holofernes. The grim handmaid. The beast of the sea makes merry, celebrates the temptation of St. Anthony. Marks this still life, for the fruit of death has been planted in the garden of earthly delights. Yeah, all right. Now it's time for one of those poems which I believe is where my heart really met my head in the most perfect way. It's one of those poems that is very, very dear to me. It's called Parting Ritual. Parting Ritual. When father died, they shaved my mother's head to the scalp. Then they forced her to bathe with the algae green water gathered from rinsing father's cups. 6 yards of white clothes sewn into a morning gown. Mother wore a smile. It was more little than a frown. They forced her to eat. They said she will need strength to look the dead in the eyes and confess to lies that she ate her husband and his other children. Hers was a feast of worms. And though sadness filled her stomach, she struggled to eat the maggots wriggling from the ears, eyes, mouth, and orifices of delayed justice. They let her walk the meadows on barefoot. Father's grave had been dug at the end of the grove. They claimed she crossed the thin line between apples and snakes. So at the nodal where two positions meet, she will light 7 candles, then circle the grave with chalk. For 90 days, they confined her to a room, the other room, where every limb comes to pose as a patriot, where every screamer thinks himself a prophet, and every crew claims to be a statesman. But after all the lectures and mourners go home, my mother will rise and make love to silence. Passing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is I Smell Death. I smell death, I tread on blood. I am last on the procession line, the last line of code. The light has come and gone, and the programmer will never return. Some dreams die before they are born. Arrows in flight may never return. So I ask, who writes the algorithms of our fate? Who plots the graph of our existence? How can we measure our lives in binary? They aimed for his head, lodged lead in the nursery of his brain, and they found out he did not bleed in pseudocodes. His mnemonics had their binding time. They have come again. They always come. Assemblers, compilers, seeking to decode the language of memory, daring to dissect destiny. They ask, when is the end of eternity? And some long for a look into the infant's eyes, longing to read the past of tomorrow, yearning to know the future of yesterday. When flowers grow teeth, Lord, let my flesh not pass from it. Who will write the Messiah's iteration? Who will program the day unknown? Now that the light has come and gone, and the programmer will never return again. Wow. It's really beautiful to go back to these poems. Some of these poems are even, it's been a while. It's been a long while I read them. It's been a long while I went to them. And looking at them now, I appreciate them again. Thanks for this opportunity because it's taking me back to go read them. So this is calculus now. For calculus, so everybody understands that I studied math and computer science, and where I did not excel so greatly in mathematics, I turned it into poetry. All right, so this is calculus. It says, we solved the differential of our existence by counting small stones, but they said the depths of our minds were way too shallow. The analyst said we needed precise axioms to capture the ghost of departed quantities. So they plotted our lives on their XY charts. Their palms read geometric rules from the lines of our palms and said, this is the limit to which your fish brains can function. But I ask, who gave them rights to run evaluations and post theorems of existence? Who gave them the impetus to fix yardsticks and set standards of living? Who said we are but indefinite integrals, and who made them higher order derivatives? Oh, tell them. Tell them we know. We know there is a rate of change. We know the vicious circle is bound in continuity. Tell them we need not their almighty formula to solve the equation of our utter confusion. Tell them we can fix our stochastic systems and can find the roots of our own identity. Yes, tell them. Tell them we shall cover the erotic distance between dreams and reality when speed and time share a sweet romance. Thank you. All right. Next up is Mystery of the Five Houses. Mystery of the Five Houses. Okay, it says, at the house of light bulb, there is fog. The man with the child in his eyes has a cat which sits daily on his lap, gazing constantly at the big sky, searching curiously for Peter Pan. In the warm room, the Lord of the Reedy River sleeps. Under the ivy, the handsome cabin boy sips his Capusetto Grosso. At the house of silence, they post riddles that only the dead can answer. The grave robbers do the dance of the dogs before unearthing secrets. The wolf and the raven play peacemakers in a debate over greed. No evidence against the black sheep. The alibi pans out, and again the tomb becomes a womb from which the fetus of truth is aborted. The dead pity the living as slaves beg other slaves for the cadavers of their children. At the house of leaves, the road falls out the windows. The decomposing trees make for bridges over the gulf of ignorance. The children of rain join the roost to their school on the ground. Their chlorophylls have been extracted. They cannot carry out the photosynthesis of their existence. At the house of jealous lovers, the keeper of storms opened the gates, and the rooms overflowed with the rage of angels. The weather is an equation. The weatherman altered the arithmetic, and the victims of mathematics are stranded. There is no sailing away on the ship within the bottle. At the house of memory, there is a shrine of madness. Pieces of glass litter the floor. There is a song on the lips of the serpentine and the broken china. The clock has lost its limbs. No one remembers the dance steps to the songs of the season. The world is ill. She suffers from future syndrome. Dead children smile from wind-kissed pictures. There's a woman left brooding upon the ledge. It's the gravedigger's wife. Her lover is coming home tonight. He's coming home to attend his funeral. Okay, I guess I still have time for maybe one or two more. I'm trying to read the one that was in this beautiful collection, the Riesling Anthology. I'm trying to read Libations. I really hope I can dig into it quickly. Libations is one of those poems that just came to my head, kind of. It just flew in there, and somehow the poems just kept coming. The poem was writing itself, per se. That's what I say sometimes. I say the poem wrote itself. It was just looking for a way to, burst out, and it did come out. I'm going to look for Libations. Give me just 1 minute. I was looking to read from my book all through, but I think Libations. Okay, here we go. Libations. Let's see how beautiful it reads. Let's hope that, of course, I know you have a beautiful poem, like 3 beautiful poems there, if I'm not mistaken. You have like 3 beautiful poems there. So like it's it's always an honor to have my work alongside beautiful poets like yourself. It's not every day that such things come around. And stop being too humble. All right, so this is Libations. History accepts them all. Protons drooping from the orifices of space merchants. Photons, neutrons, quarks, the chagrins in the suitcases of cosmic diplomats. The chaotic waste of high energy. She accepts them all. Profusions of timeless possibilities. Studied convictions of doubt and spilt milk of consciences expatiating guilt. So in the lungs of the rainforest, the carbon chains are breaking, and Kekule's monkeys, all joined together by their tails, are falling from the trees. History accepts them all: coconut water, palm wine, decanted semen, milk and blood. She accepts them all: the aspirations of aborted offsprings, ancient animosities, the iniquities of saints, cycles of stagnations, and the computed eternities of chaos. So the child with silver hair leaves home in search of God, in search of new worlds where she can gather stars and gods. But it is the night of the Ascari, and this daughter knows nothing of what it costs to purchase a harmless smile in the land which the cartographer left out of the map. History accepts them all: liquid music, sugar, bleeding ignorance, still beer, toasted leaves, and fragments of disintegrated suns. She accepts them all: glyphs, monads, broken syntax, false tongues, sentences that keep changing their sex, and the love that lays hidden between the chaos of text and symbols. So a son murders his mother's God and invites her to his funeral. Time dissolves in her mouth, and in the emptiness, she discovers that the rainbow has no color. And that is Libations. Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm done. I think I have like maybe 2 more poems before I run up. I'm done with this section, I'm guessing. So this is titled The Pulitzer. Usually I do some found poems. So this is one of those found poems that kind of wrote itself again. It's just from the Pulitzer. So I looked at some of the winners, some of the books that had won the Pulitzer, and then I used the title of those poems to make this one. So that's what it is. Life on Mars, the best of it, is only an abundance of nothing. So we took core samples from Middle Earth to make beds for trees in the sky. At the tryst of failure, we watched the shadow of Cyrus shatter the glass of human innocence and dismember the limbs of time. We watched the native god inseminate an elephant and make love to his late wife. Still watching the spring festivals of the lights and shadows there at Martha's Vineyard, we found out what love comes to. Who would have thought that moist sand and gravel were the makeup of practical gods? They say each one lives for different hours. At the Republic of Poetry, we encountered a blizzard of one. Dean played an elegy on toy piano, and from the black zodiac sprouted an orchard. Oh, the dream of the unified field, American sublime. But eye shots don't tell the simple truth. So we learn to speak the neon vernacular. In the before life, they say they were wild irises. Thank goodness for near changes, the metamorphoses of the wild. The world doesn't end. Thus never give partial accounts till you have heard from the other lover. Oh, that I understand the mystery of small houses. Blessed are those who can see their full self-portraits in a convex mirror. The transparent man too is made of flesh and blood, eats bread and drinks wine. Saints and strangers make promises, not of things of this world, but of the waking and dream flights. Preach, strange holiness, salvation for flowering stones, grace, feed slaves on meat and sons on corn husks. Faith, these new believers must take the old road to paradise. So I think my half hour is practically done. It's just a minute, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if fulfillment can come off in a minute. This is fulfillment in 1 minute. Fulfillment is the smile his mother's corpse wore today. The moon on this eve of her funeral has entered that face in which it becomes a door. Door into a history class where a boy has raised his hand to ask a question about motion. They say cows do not speak, but this son is no cow. No, this son is no cow. This son is that proverbial donkey whose eyes have been blessed to behold an angel. He has been taught another way. This son knows the world is vain. He also knows that death can be made holy. So he never mocks his own vagary. He walked into the history class, a man dressed in women's clothes, his masculinity gentle, his femininity strong, his arguments weighty, and he would say, who cares if the prophet hangs himself in disbelief? Fiction will always tell a truth that history will never comprehend. So I guess that is it. That's my half hour. Thank you very much. Thank you.
May I make a request?
Okay, go ahead.
That was a wonderful line to end on.
Mhm.
But since it's not the end, there's a poem in Teaching My Father that is
Okay.
very companionable to the poem you read from the Elevation Review. So the poem
Okay.
you read from the Elevation Review was What is in Your Fridge? And I was immediately struck that it was like this other poem I love in the collection, Teaching My Father. The one where I don't remember the title and the book is out of reach, but I'll describe it to you. It's similar, but it's different. You are entering the kitchen of your absent mother, and there are gray bowls. The one where you're opening.
I think it's titled In the Kitchen.
In the kitchen, all right. The kitchen.
Okay,
Would you please read the kitchen poem? And for those of you who have been listening, meditate on what is in your fridge as he reads the kitchen poem. It's gorgeous gorgeous language. Please, if you don't mind.
Okay, so here is the kitchen. It says, these days it's deliberately kept dark and silent. The broken teacup still sits near the empty sink. I open the refrigerator, and instead of food, it is stocked with debt and bills and suits. There are gray bowls in the orderly cupboards, but they are filled with nothing. I am hungry, but no gas to start a fire. The kettle is dry, the tap is thirsty. I will give my little finger to hear again the applause of running water. This used to be a room where music was cooked. Then when it belonged solely to my mother, when she would bake the world for me, while I vamped on the imaginary piano my father etched on the kitchen table. And the fridge will always hum like a chorister with helpfulness. The dishes are clean, the drawers are locked. Father would not allow anyone open it. But I am no more that child in the man's eyes. So I pull them open like a mortician, secrets lay lifelessly on the platter, like corpses on the trays at the morgue. I unearth the secrets. They are quite simple and domestic. They speak of those times when there were always shards of broken innocence littering the floor. I remember those times when the cats would tirelessly chase shadows. I want to raid this kitchen and rid it of those unearthly hours. I begin by pouring the remaining smudge of regrets out of my grandmother's jug into the patched sink. Then I fill the gray bowls in the orderly cupboards with the blood of berries, grains of laughter, and the essence of sublime moments. This kitchen must return to being the room where music is baked. This glass of silence must be broken by the applause of running waters. I will fill the gas and fix myself a pot of coffee. I will give my left eye just to watch kingdoms rise again from my mother's teacup. Wow, that's serious. You know what you just did? You just made me see importance in this poem. It's not one of those poems I ever go to, and that's strange. You just gave it a different meaning for me. Honestly.
Really?
That's strange.
I was going to ask you because for me, the what is in your fridge was so, I mean, it's different language, but do you know what I'm saying? It's treading that same territory. Do you feel that way? I feel that way as a reader. Do you feel that way as the creator?
What you're feeling is the same register talking about two different things. One is about, like the pain and the anguish per se, and one is trying to bring back the beautiful memories. That's
but
exactly.
There's pain and anguish in it.
Yeah. So what he's trying to do is run away from the pain and anguish that what is in your fridge gives you. That's what the personality is trying to do. Trying to run away from that pain and anguish and go to something more beautiful about the times.
You know what's wonderful about this? No, I love you saying this because as the reader, I don't agree, but that's okay. It's wonderful. No, your intent as the poet. Your intent as the poet. That's why you're here. So we hear about your intent as the poet. But I'm saying as the reader, I'm like, oh my gosh, you use this word. What's your word? Your words for it. You talk about speculative realism. I submit that you are about, now here are these two words, and tell me what you think about them. Domestic fabulism. Are you familiar with that idea? To me, you are the king of domestic fabulism.
You know what? I think I might buy your idea and then sell off what I have, because I think it's beautiful when somebody who I keep telling people, sometimes I write a poem, I don't even have a real clue where I was driving to. And then somebody reads that poem. You see, that's why when we write, sometimes we're not writing for ourselves, and that's the truth.
Exactly. It comes through us. I love that you say that. I love.
Yeah.
Listen, I love libations. I voted for libations. I was really. pissed
Yeah.
that it did not place. No, I love libations because you do all of this heavy lifting. You do it and make it seem so easy. And that's why I said, I don't mean to be reductive at all. I say domestic fabulism because I
Mhm.
think your work is just absolutely stunning and wonderful. I'm just so delighted that you're here. But
Thank you very much.
anyway, so just think about that term. That's how I'm going to describe you. Um, unless you object, I'm going to say
No, no, I mean,
you're
that's new.
you're the
That's
king of
christening.
domestic fabulism, of an
Well,
incredible kind of
so
domestic fabulism.
perhaps whenever I'm gonna post what we've recorded, I'll say this is the new christening. Listen to the king of domestic family.
King of
That was
domestic
mad.
fabulism. So let me ask
Yeah.
you this. Well, okay, because people are always consuming something,
Mhm.
ingesting something, eating something. And why are you always eating children? Tell me, why are you always having people eat? Why? What's with the cannibalism? Please tell us.
So okay, so let me make a good joke. I come from a place called Ngwa.
Say again.
And where I come from, Ngwa, Ngwa.
And that's how you say it. Ngwa, N-G-W,
Yeah, Ngwa, yes, exactly.
Ngwa.
Now,
Thank
if you
you.
read the
Teach us,
history,
teach us.
if you read the history of the Ngwa people, there are parts of it that says, hey, this guy used to eat people, you know.
Oh,
So so of course there's a but that's not where it comes from. Why I do the whole children thing is because in like we went to the domestic. You see, when that violence, when the war rages on in the domestic, the real victims are usually the children.
mhm.
And most of the encounters I've had, when I assess everything, when I go through all that I have researched, all I have found, what I want to write about, you realize that in the end, the people who, and that also goes to the people who I interact with, my age mates, people from where their backgrounds, from where they come from, there are things that, and I realize that in the end, it is the children that
Who suffer?
pay. There's one
Yes.
of those lines I remember where I say something about the children, seeing ghosts while their fathers take selfies, because sometimes the parents don't even know how much trauma they've put these children to.
Mm.
They have no, so they go about their lives and feel like everything is fine, but in the real sense, these children they're practically messed up. So the eating might not necessarily be chewing them, which is a metaphor
No,
you
no,
say I
I
like.
know, I know. But I'm just saying. But you use,
That,
that trope, a,
yeah, yeah,
and
because
variations
like
of it a lot.
it was, and then if you even go to the dogmas, the rules, the regulations that were made in the past, the guys who are still bearing the brunt today are the ones who were not present. They were not called into that dialogue. They were not called into that discussion. They are the children. In fact, it's even worse. Some of them are the children of children, right? So they are the ones who have to live by those stringent rules and regulations, and it's eating them up. They're not free to express. They're not free to live their own lives. So I like my poems to speak to that sometimes. I most times, yeah. I want to be like a voice in the generation that has lived through such kind of a pain. And so I want to be that voice that says, hey, this is what has happened. This is what these kids have gone through. So so you can feel it. I mean, so if it's gonna help get some things back into the consciousness of a different generation, that'll be fine, so that they understand that, hey, whatever we do right now would play a very great role in the guys who are going to come after.
You mentioned the Ngwa.
Mm-hmm.
It's a people as well as a place.
So yeah, so there's a place called Obiomangwa or Obingwa. That's where I come from. I come from Obingwa. And so
Oh,
it's a
so
people
it's
too.
longer than what you said.
So the people are called the Ngwa people. The region is a region that spans two different major areas now. So you have the Isialangwa, that is the head of the Ngwa region, and Obiomangwa, the heart. That's where I come from. So I come from the heart of the Ngwa region. So there's another part called the head.
What
So
is
you
it
have the
like?
head.
Is it urban? Is it
No, it's
rural?
not
Is
urban.
it agrarian?
Currently, I can't say it's urban. It's not urban right now, but it's not totally rural. So it's not like it's one creepy village and all that. Now it's just evolving. It's coming into its
Suburban?
own. It's not yet urban. It's trying to get into that urbanization proper. Developments come, so you have light, you have virtually every water, you have those things. All the basic amenities are there, but the life there is not as, I mean, you won't compare it to maybe even Aba, which Aba is within Ngwa, but Aba is like the urban area of Ngwa. You get it now.
Yes.
So Aba, which is the major city, that's the major city in Ngwa land.
So this is
So you
like
have Aba.
this is like over 1 million people.
Yes, over 1 million people. Over 1 million people, yes.
We are so ignorant of all so is it of all the groups, of the many groups. So does it?
So in Nigeria,
obviously you reference. Wait one second, and then I'll because I want you to incorporate this in your answer. So tell me a bit about the big we, are familiar when you're referencing bits of Western mythology. Tell me about referencing Ngwa mythology.
Okay, so what I did was not necessarily referencing Ngwa mythology. What I did was referencing Igbo mythology rather.
Igbo mythology.
So in my work
we're more familiar with them.
Yeah, so in my work, you currently have more of Igbo and Yoruba mythology coming into my work. So why I can't, you don't necessarily, you can't go into an Ngwa mythology without the larger Igbo mythology. I don't know if you get that. Basically more of what the Igbos is, a general Igbo thing. So whatever it is that they have is just maybe just a little different. It's just like what will I call it now? Like a subgenre of the general Igbo stuff, right? So in Pattern Ritual, for instance, I wrote that poem when a friend of mine, her husband, so the age difference between her husband is large, and then he died. Now, because she's the younger woman who probably the family did not necessarily want him to marry her, they felt she was too young for him and all the rest. Now, start accusing her of killing the man. That's it. It's crazy that it still happens even today. So what they do is there's a normal practice of they have to scrape her hair. So that was the line there was
reference
literal.
That I know, yes. Cutting your mother's hair. Oh.
Yeah. So they had to scrape her hair. She would have to do those rituals just to clear the air. And say, hey,
oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. I mean, not good. So you know what I'm saying? That's not the right word. That's so compelling and evocative.
So that is why I said basically what I try to do is it's more speculative realism, because to the West, to the other part of the world, it's just speculative, right? But we leave it. So our speculation, or what they call speculation.
No, but listen, don't fix that. It means that it works on many levels, that you, by just representing and representing, evoke images for me that are foreign and compelling. They still speak to me. I still understand something terrible is happening, something terrible and oppressive is happening to this woman. It's just that for me, I thought that you're speaking metaphorically
Hmm?
And it's not necessarily, some of it is literal, but that's glory. Listen, don't tell, okay? Shh, we won't tell anybody. We won't tell
All right.
anybody about how literal it is, because it's so poetic and it's so gorgeous. Oh my God, we're running out of, no, I have a billion things. Look, I've got pages of notes to ask you. All right. So the first poems you read, I was familiar with because, of course, I read them in the Elevation Review. The other poems you
Okay.
read, of course, were, so the Elevation Review, are those going in the nakedness of God?
Yes, they are going to be in the nakedness of God.
Okay,
I'm
so that's
still working on them. Yes, I'm still
okay.
working on
And
different.
I just want to say this to you quickly before I ask you questions the rest of the world probably wants answers to. I love self-portrait and a convex mirror. It's one of the things I read in my 20s. It was so, Ashbery is just amazing to me. He was very, at that point in time in my life, a million years ago, he was very influential. So I was delighted to see that line, see you play with
Yeah,
that title in your poem. Thank you very much.
thank you.
When did you begin writing poetry? I'm gonna get to the nuts and bolts things now.
Okay, so I don't know if what I was doing then was poetry, but way back we call it primary school. I don't know what you guys call it, primary section.
Elementary?
Between yeah, elementary. So that's elementary, yes. So we
Elementary
call it primary
school?
school.
How old were
And
you?
then somewhere between, I would say somewhere between 5 and 7.
Oh
So
yeah,
I don't.
elementary school, primary school. Oh wow.
Yes. So I'm not sure if what I was doing was poetry, but what I would do is, if I like a girl, I was never gonna walk up to her and say, "Hey, I like you." Yeah, it's not gonna work. So I would go back. So I could either write her an acrostic, or something that has to do with acronyms,
Nice.
or write her a letter that is not just the normal hello and hi letter. It's gonna be worded like it's gonna be musical, it's gonna be something different. That's how it all started. And when I
So it
say
was
this,
to woo. You were wooing your
exactly,
classmates.
I started like, hey, come on. And then
You
you
were
see, the
a
Bible had so much.
rapper. You were rapping. Oh,
and
oh
and
my
the Bible had a lot of influence. And then I come from an Adventist background, so we use the hymns. So you see the hymns, Song of Solomon, Psalms, and a couple of other Bible verses.
Oh my gosh, those are the Song of Solomon. Oh my
Those
God.
guys changed the game for me.
You
So
use good source material. That's great,
so
great source
they
material.
made sure I wasn't going to use just any language. Now, it won't be just any language. I would look for something. I wanted to be like Fanny Cosby. I wanted to be like some of those great hymn writers. And I'm like, I'm going to weave this and weave this. And then people saw those things. I mean, even adults looked at one or two of those letters and like, dude, are you sure? How old are you?
Yes.
And they're
Oh,
like, how old are you? How are you coming up with this? Because they're like, I wouldn't even sit down and create this myself. And this dude is just 7 or so, and he's doing all this. So I had older boys and older girls say, hey, Valentine is
write
next
one
week.
for me. So you hired
So
yourself out as a
so I started to, that's how we started off,
a
and then
Cyrano de Bergerac. Oh my
so
God.
I now started from there. I started to delve into reading more, and my father did play a good role because he was buying me books of poetry. Somehow I don't know how he felt I would have interest. I don't know how he knew that
Oh,
maybe I might
that's
just
so
like
wonderful.
it. So he was then at the University of Ibadan, and
All
so when he was coming
praises,
back,
Father. All praises.
and it
Did he
was
get to
beautiful.
see
So
your
from there,
book?
oh, of course, I gave him a copy. Yeah, I did.
Ah, what did he say about that title?
It made him proud. But of course, he was looking at me like, dude, I gave back to you, and you want to teach me how to give back another? And I'm like, that's not what it means, sir.
Oh, that
And no, that's not what he means, And but he was really proud that. I mean,
Oh,
looking at me most times when I would just lock myself up and write in the house, he's looking at it like this is paying off. And then he looks at that son of his who he sent to study mathematics and computer science. And they've always asked me, why didn't you waste our money and go study computer science? you know, I told them, and I told them, hey, it's not like the money was wasted, right? I went there and I started to write like a scientist. I started to research like a scientist, and I incorporated such into my writing, and it's
absolutely.
really worked for me. Yeah, it's really worked for me. So that's how they've resolved that. Okay, it's not a waste, man. Education, he got educated. That's it.
So,
Hmm.
what, how do you decide what to write about?
I like to move if I don't have anything inspiring me at the moment, I go to what I've read. So I look out for I start doing researches of things, and then a name pops up somewhere. Somehow I just get one name somewhere and I start researching about the name and start to write. But on the other hand, I look for things that first move me. Some of the poems in Teaching Father you realize were more personal stuff, so I look for things that move me and then I interpret them differently. I first go to what moves me, things that are happening around me. I am a journalist, so sometimes there's one of the poems here called Symbols. It was the picture of a boy who was it Iraq or Afghanistan, who there was a bomb, and then the bomb goes up and he was a survivor. Then you could see dust, the powder of, the dust from the bomb all over his face. He was just in something like an ambulance. And that picture alone, I couldn't stop. I couldn't leave it. So in the book, it's called Symbols. I couldn't get it off my mind. There was no way I was going to sleep. I knew I had to write something about it. So first I go for what really moves me, what I can relate to, what I want to speak about. And then if sometimes there's not that all around me at the time, I go straight to research. I go straight to reading. I want to read. I want to pick out something. Then I look for prompts. And that's one of my theories says there's no, what do you call it now? There's writer's block. I don't think there's anything like a writer's block for me. The moment you keep reading, looking out stuff, you write the rubbish first. So that's the point. People say writer's block because they want to write it perfectly at once. No, it doesn't happen. Write the rubbish
I
and
agree.
start to make it beautiful. Yes.
What is your writing routine?
Writing routine. My writing routine starts basically. My major routine is actually reading, research actually. So I'm always having my books everywhere. I start for if I really want to write a collection. If I want to write a collection, what I first do is read up all the beautiful books of poetry I have. It doesn't even matter if I've read them 1,001 times over again.
Mm.
I go back, read them, and read them loud. I read them loud. I want to see why it's beautiful. Why is Sylvia Plath talking about October and Poppy and everything? That's how I wrote October Poppy. Yes, I wrote a collection, a poem called October Poppy, and it's 8 pages long. So I go around, I read everybody, I read, and then I drop
Excellent.
them. Yeah, I drop them and then delve into what I want to do.
So who are you reading at the moment?
So currently I am reading, it's not here, it's the collection by Contemporary Verse. They just released a book. They just had a book. One of my poems is in there, and
Who?
that's what I'm reading.
I know, say again.
Contemporary Canada, CV2.
Oh, CV2, Contemporary something Canada,
Yeah,
CV2.
contemporary verse, yes, contemporary verse. And so I'm
Oh,
reading some of the
contemporary
poets
verse.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm trying
from
to
Canada.
I'm trying to get Canisia's books. I'm kind of falling in love with Canisia's work. That's Canisia Lubrin. So I want to see if I can get her book. And of course, this guy is always by my side. I don't rush. I never rush him. No, there's no rushing. I keep going. Everybody's poem. I want to make sure I read everybody's poem for what it is. No rushing through. because I think this is the genre where I fit in the most, and this is about the best. These are the best of the best I hear. Trust me.
I
So
said domestic fabulism, sentences that keep changing their sex. Tell them, tell them, tell them. The dead pity the living. Every screamer calls himself a prophet. The keeper of storms opens the gate. Yeah, yeah. Soonest Nathaniel, Soonest Nathaniel.
very
We're almost at the end. Oh my gosh. All right. What else must I ask you that people need to know? Oh, okay. So outside of what you create, do you have a favorite type of speculative poetry? One, and I'll ask the other question because we've only got 2 minutes at the same time. Do you have a favorite form? Do you have a favorite type of speculative poetry, and do you have a favorite poetic form?
honestly, I don't have a very a type for speculative poetry, because the ranges of people's ranges are beautiful, and you need to meet them where they are. That's what I believe about speculative poetry. It's so beautiful when the diversity is what's beautiful about it. You want to wonder, how is this person thinking in this nature? Is this person well? Are you sure you're good in the head? Like, why are you thinking like this? Sometimes you see
Oh,
somebody who's lying, and you're like, what?
no, we're not.
Really?
No, we're not well. No, we're not. We're not
you
well.
know
No.
so I don't look out for a specific one, and I really like what Bruce Boston did. Bruce Boston was one of those people that really encouraged my speculative poetry, the curiosity, and the longing for the speculative. And if you've checked, he did a couple of robots, a couple of it's different things, just various things. And then when you go to other persons, I mean, for instance, when you wrote the Ebo Landing poem, that's the poem that has a
Thank
fight in it, right? It's pushing for something. So this, and which is close to what I do, push for something. So it's all there. It's all there. You want to push for something with your poem, fine. You want to give us something, an insight to something we never knew about, beautiful. I'll go for it.
you.
And so
Mhm.
I don't really have any special one. I make sure I enjoy the poem. I love
And
to enjoy the poem.
and
What's the
and
second question again?
and
Quick one.
form. Do you have a favorite poetic
No,
form?
no. Poetic form, no, because I want to be I don't want anything to hinder my expression. I don't want to say I'm going to write in double lines, or I'm going to write haiku. If I do that, if I go for any specific
Or
form, it might not
sonnets
necessarily-
or
it might
villanelles?
not necessarily be the perfect medium for my poem. You get
So,
it.
so let me ask
So
you,
I
let me
I
ask
like
you a slightly different question though. So hold that thought for a
okay.
second. Are
Okay.
there um Igbo, Yoruba, or Ngwa forms, poetic forms that we don't know about? Are
So
there oral
it's
forms?
not a poetic form, but it's like a language, and I'm going to incorporate it in one of my works.
Woo! Please
I'm
do.
doing one little. I'm going to incorporate it. It's called, I don't know if you know. It's called in CBD.
Yes,
So,
yes, I've seen it
exactly,
written. I've seen it written
exactly.
because
In CBD is brilliant.
I've seen Insipidity, and I've seen the the Vey, the Vey,
Exactly.
right.
Yes.
I've seen
Yes.
Insipidity and the Vey. Oh,
So I'm
wow.
gonna incorporate in CBD in one of my works,
You're so
and
brilliant.
so there's this lady who has even done, like, she's done a full text on a new form of CBD, not necessarily a new form, a better form to make it readable. So I'm going to explore all that in one of my works. It's
Wow.
something I'm looking.
Please
Yes.
do. That would oh my gosh. Be the bridge. Take us back to the future. That is what you're doing.
Mm.
I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you ever so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
You
I
are
had
such a brilliant and wonderful and joyful poet.
thank
I
you.
adore your work. I adore your
Thank you
efforts. I
very
look
much.
forward to your new book. Good luck with your new book. Please let us know if we're still around. We definitely want to celebrate it. I thank you
Okay.
all my listeners. for joining us this evening, for listening to Soonest Nathaniel on the
Thank you very much.
Speculative Sundays Poetry Reading Series. Peace and health and joy and, and more peace and love to you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you.
very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for
I'm
being
grateful.
here. Me too.
Yes. Thank
Good
you.
night.
All right. Gotcha.
Bye.
Bye.